Hey, welcome back to A Faster Me. This is going to be the Redlands Criterium. This is the amateur crit that's ran on Sunday as part of the Redlands Classic. It's not really part of the actual Redlands Classic, but it's part of the entire event for the week. So on Sunday, there's an amateur crit, and sometimes a lot of the women that didn't make the time cut for the Redlands Classic will jump into this amateur crit. So you see the map up to the top left there. Let's give you a quick breakdown of the course. This is Naomi's camera here, Naomi Bisagno, and I got Felicia Castanedo in the race as well. The rest of our team is kind of missing in action. We got Elisa doing the Redlands Classic with Jack Rue, and then some of our other girls are just missing. So this is the hardest turn there. It's kind of decreasing radius. As you can see, Naomi came really close to that sign. It's kind of decreasing radius, off camber to the left side there. It's kind of slowest turn as well. Then you have to accelerate kind of on the downhill here and leading into a pretty fast chicane, a little right-left chicane. A lot of people get this wrong here. Obviously, we're used to these four-corner crits, and people are really strong, but they're not really. A lot of times people don't spend a lot of time on cornering and just learning apexes, cornering concepts. You hear it all the time, me talking about it. So you're going to see a lot of varying lines and close calls in this race. So this is a long sweeping turn. It could be ran as a double apex or a second apex turn. As you can see, like most people are too tight there running along the barrier. But that's a nice, fun turn. I've done this race, a few years back, and it's a really fast, fun turn there. It's just, in this race, they're going to be taking it really tight, but I like to take the wider approach and kind of cut up towards the start-finish line more instead of going towards the outside barrier. But anyway, that's one lap. It's a very fast course. I think it's only about 0.7 of a mile, 0.6 of a mile, something of that nature. And they're going to be running, minute and a half laps basically on average, somewhere in that range. So yes, it's a pretty good field. It's definitely a talented field. You have some decent teams in here, but you don't have anybody that's really stacked as far as like numbers, just because, like I said, it's the amateur crit and a lot of the bigger teams are doing the actual Redlands Classic. But you do have, I think, 3 girls from the Blazers in here. You got maybe 1 or 2 Butcher Box. You got 2 of our girls, and then you have a couple girls from Competitive Edge. You got Colleen Gulick in here. I think you got Jazz from Encycle Mommies, and 2 LABA riders with Camilla and India, and then a bunch of kind of like one-off people that didn't make it to the rest of the stages of the Redlands Classic, and they're in here as well. So yeah, I don't know if I missed it already. I believe I did, but you saw that incident going into the chicane where kind of one of the girls just didn't turn her bike, and the girl from the outside expected her to turn her bike and kind of started turning. And that's something I talk about as well. Is even though the girl on the inside should have turned her bike, the fact of the matter is, if there's someone to your inside, you basically just can't turn until they turn. So yeah, the other girl should have turned and didn't, but either way, you can't really turn until she turns. Oh yeah, and there's Taylor Mize right there as well, or Tyler Mize. I always butcher her name. But yeah, she's a fast finisher as well. And I think she's riding solo in here from Alto Velo today. I think I don't think the rest of her team is here. See another little incident there where India got a little too close to the barrier and had to run wide. And the proper approach to that turn should be taken from the outside, taking it wide, turn as late as possible, and you should be angled up the road there. They're doing a good job on this, going into this chicane, being really wide here. But then instead of turning it sharp, everyone drifts kind of here and kind of floats across. So it's just a little lack of commitment there. But as you can see, it's some fast, tight racing. They're not going that fast right now, but it is pretty close. And a lot of the course, it's not really single track or anything, but it kind of plays like it's narrow. So it's a lot safer, more fun, and better when it's stretched out. When it gets a little congested, those roads start to narrow a little bit. So yeah, the line Naomi's on now, the approach is a little bit better, but the drifting out wide here, eventually that gets you in trouble, in my opinion, because as you go faster with all the peloton hugging that turn so tight, it's gonna push wide, and all trouble is gonna get pushed wide there as well. Naomi just used it that one time to move up, but I was just making a point in general there. So you got one of the ladies from Butcher Box right here to the inside, and you can see this is the front straight. I didn't really mention the front straight, but it's actually pretty taxing. You see it's up to 4% right there. It's not flat. It's a false flat, goes from 1 to 4%. And over time, that just, kind of wears on you a little bit. Also because, there's just a lot of hard accelerations on that false flat. And this would be the point from this whole backside here is where you would get a chance to recover. And to a degree, you do, but it's also really fast. And a lot of attacks kind of happen on this backside. So yeah, this chicane is actually, it could be taken like really fast. It's not that big of a deal. The first turn into the chicane is kind of like an actual turn, but the kink coming out is just really a high speed left hand kink. Like you don't really have to put much effort in it. You can really carry a lot of speed coming out of that chicane. Right there's a manhole also kind of, near the apex of that turn, or near the neutral apex of that turn. In general, you want to be inside of that manhole. You want to be coming at an angle pointed up the road and inside that manhole, and that just gives you the opportunity to carry more speed exiting that turn. So the race was off and on pretty spicy as well. They had a lot of good preems, some decent cash preems, $100 a piece, $50 here and there. Just kind of made it really spicy. And obviously, people are always going to go for the cash. There's not a lot of money in cycling, as far as the purse prize or whatever. So now I just flipped to Felicia's camera, and unfortunately, the camera got knocked down just a little bit. As you can see, the angles kind of pointed at the ground instead of pointed neutral or upward. But yeah, it just gives you a different perspective here. And both of them raced even though they're in the same race and they were kind of near each other for a large portion of the race, they both raced it very differently. Naomi is a little more, I would say, a little bit more confident in like being aggressive. And so Naomi rode like a lot of the inside of the course more often, and Felicia kind of played it a little cautious this race, and she rode a little bit more of the outside of the course. Now, in my opinion, and what I teach my team is I like riding the inside of the course. I think the inside of the course is where you have more control. And I really mean going into turns. The inside of the course is where you have more control and where you're able to control your own destiny, basically. However, when you ride the inside, it takes a little bit more concentration and there's a little higher emphasis on positioning while entering a turn. You really have to keep your bike in a dominant position to stay safe and to be able to kind of dictate your own line. In general, I call the outside line. I kind of joke about it, but I kind of call it the cowardly line to my team, and I don't mean that like, I don't really mean that. I'm losing words here. I don't really mean it like specifically that you're a coward if you take the outside line. Obviously, there's always time, place, circumstance that will play into that. But in general, if you constantly ride the outside, I think that typically comes from fear. It comes from a lack of confidence, either a lack of confidence in your ability, which typically that's what it is, or a lack of confidence or trust in the peloton, which in my opinion still comes from a lack of confidence in your ability. So, and that's why I say Felicia was just being cautious this race, because often she's on the outside, and that shows like a level of discomfort in my opinion. If you come around an outside one time, it's not that big of a deal. Or if you come for a specific reason to move up when it's congested on the inside or something, that's acceptable. But if you ride the outside like the majority of the race, it's typically you're lacking confidence at that time. And that's just my my 2 cents. That's sometimes it's lack of knowledge also, but in general, you want to ride the inside line that you can control, you can predict, and you have a little bit of say in what angle you take into the corner. I'm sure someone's going to push back on that, but doesn't matter. So yeah, here, like I said, you see that false flat kind of gets the speed down, which, to a degree is okay because you're coming into the slowest turn on the course. And you see that to the left side there, how the road just kind of has a natural crown to it for drainage, most likely. It makes it seem off camber coming out of that turn. And in some of the other races, you'll often have a crash there where someone may slide out. Turn one is basically the place on this course where most people crash, throughout, like, say, the middle parts of the race. And late in the race, it's the final turn that people crash, often running wide into the barriers or striking a pedal. So again, I always like to, comment on Colleen's riding if you see her tucked in there to the right side. Now, don't get me wrong, she's a little tight to the barrier, and I don't think that's the proper angle for that turn. But the entire peloton rides it that way, so sometimes you have to stay in the draft, stay protected, and ride with the peloton. You don't want to be doing something 100% different than what the peloton is doing. That just creates a little bit of that can create a problem in itself, even though you might know or want to take the proper line. If the peloton is consistently taking an improper line, sometimes you have to just go with it and ride with the group, or you need to go out front and ride by yourself. But when you're in there, not only do you have to sometimes stay with the line that the peloton is taking just for safety, but also for efficiency and be able to benefit from the draft. So keep that in perspective when I talk about cornering. It's, there's, like I said, there's always time, place, circumstance. It's not just one way to do it. And if everyone else is doing it a certain way, in order to be safe, you kind of have to do it that way as well. But I like to talk about Colleen because Colleen's very efficient. She's very efficient, very smart rider, doesn't waste a lot of energy. Even when she's moving up or down, whichever, back in the peloton, moving up in the peloton, you can see it's not a lot of physical energy being wasted. There's not a lot of fidgeting from her. It's kind of like, having like a emphasis on mindfulness and just kind of being in that Zen mode of relaxation and thought at the same time, and just kind of moving up and down. When you'll see a lot of other riders, they're really fidgety. They're really fidgety, and they'll just constantly moving from one spot to another, even when there's no reason. The group can be riding in a straight line. They should be in the draft, and you'll see them bouncing like right and left. So we're back to Naomi's camera here, and you'll see the difference. Like, Felicia was like not aggressive, and you'll see Naomi's like, not, and I don't mean aggressive in a bad way, but you'll see she's like way more assertive and committed to the lines or to the moves that she's making. Doesn't matter if they're like proper or not proper. It pays to be committed sometimes. Not sometimes, all the time, actually. You really should be committed while making your moves. So yeah, they definitely have the speed up a little bit here. When you're coming out of that chicane at 27 miles per hour, that's a decent pace, and you see the peloton's more stretched out now. More than likely, it's a preem lap. Again, there you can ignore that first turn there, and this is a much better angle here going into the final turn. Much better angle. You see there at 28 miles per hour, they carried much higher speed, opposed to earlier when they were taking the really tight line and only being at 21, 22 miles per hour. So obviously someone's went to the front and stretched it out. And this is what you like to see. This is when it's a lot more fun. It's a lot safer, less congested when it's stretched out like this and, a little faster. So if you see the different lines right there taken, you really want to start off wider and then cut it back across those billboards there. There's a little drift there by Naomi going into that turn. It's one of the Blazers riders in front right there. I don't know all the Blazers' names in this race. I think Joyce is in the race, but I don't know the other two Blazers' names. And being that this is like, on the tail end of a really big stage race, and a lot of the girls came from the Classic. There's a lot of girls in here, I don't know their name. It's more than just like a local field. And I think they're racing for 45 minutes today. Normally they're at 50 or 60 minutes, and I think today it was cut down to 45 minutes. So for the women's classic race, it's actually a very unique race. They do a different thing here. Is they start off on the circuit. This year they didn't do any laps of the circuit from the beginning. They just kind of left from the circuit. Then they go out and do a road race, basically. And when they come back, the only people allowed back on the circuit is in the first selection. In the first, they have to basically be in like the breakaway. If you're not in the breakaway or in the first group that's in the lead of the road race, you don't get let back on the circuit. So by this day, this is day 5 of the this is day 5 of the Redlands Classic. They start with like 110, 120 women. They're probably down to around 80 or so, 70 something now after people didn't make the time cuts. But when you get to the final day, if you're not in that first group, when you get back to the circuit, sometimes it's only like 20 girls that make it back. And the other 50 girls, like their day is done if they're not in that final group. So it's kind of unique like that you go out, do a road race, you come back to the circuit, you'll finish like 3 to 5 laps on the circuit, but only the front, girls get to get back on the circuit. So, and this year, it was kind of good to see Holly Breck ended up winning that classic, the Redlands Classic. I forget what they call it. They may call it Sunset. I think it's Sunset is the road race. But either way, Holly ended up making it back to the circuit, and she ended up winning that race with the last lap sneak attack, and kind of got off the front and was able to hold it back to the line. So here we're back to Felicia's angle for the last lap or so. Last couple laps. And again, it's just kind of different way that they rode the race, and it's like that with everybody in here. You got 20 something girls in the race, and there's many different ways to approach it. So as you can see, what I was talking about earlier about positioning, when you're on the inside, it feels a little chaotic, it feels a little tight. And I don't mean chaotic, it really just feels a little tight. There's a little bit mental pressure on you to make sure your bike is positioned correctly. But there's also a lot of comfort in being able to protect yourself and control what line you take. When you're on the outside, like Felicia is here, there's a little less mental pressure because you have a lot of room. However, whenever something goes bad, everyone's going to adjust to swing wide. Whenever something goes bad on the inside, it's going to swing wide to the outside, and you're going to be stuck with nowhere to go, and you're going to be stuck with people reacting into you. And that's kind of the big difference. So it's a little less mental stress, but in the long run, and it's almost inevitable that almost all trouble gets pushed to the outside. And it's not going to be any different in this race. You're going to see it on the last lap. Um, I won't spoil it. I'll discuss it when we get there. But yeah, the trouble's going to get pushed to the outside on the last lap as well. So yeah, there's more attacks going on here, and you can see the speeds up high, 28 miles per hour, before even hitting the chicane here. Naomi's a little bit late there, but she turns it tight. And yeah, like I said, that left-hand turn, it's really not even a turn. It's a really, fraction of a second kink. Yeah, there's so many different lines in here going into that turn. And I admit that is not a turn to get easy, to get it right easily. We don't have that many turns like that. And like I said, it's open at the beginning, really fast, kind of decreasing radius at the end. Really long sweeper. And you can tell the girls are really on it now. They're putting in some really good effort. And, going up this false flat, it's pretty good to have it above 25 miles per hour. It's a pretty hard effort. That was a pretty good turn by the group there, but again, because it's stretched out, it was a little bit faster. It still went down to 20 miles per hour, but it was stretched out. There was only double file there. So that's Felicia in front right here, just in case you didn't know what our kits look like. Yeah, it's really good speed right now. They definitely have the speed up. Like I said, there was a lot of preems, few attacks, some good money given out. So yeah, this is a difficult turn here, and as you can see, a lot of people are not comfortable with where to be. That little restaurant there on the corner is a great place to watch the races from too. There's a couple restaurants there, but that's a very good place to watch the watch the races at. Our tent is right there to the left, the little ice cream shop tent. And we've been there every year for like the last 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, there's no like reserved tent spaces or anything, so you just kind of get in where you fit in. There's India right there in front. It's good to see India back racing again. I don't think she's raced that many times this year. Her and Camilla both are in here today. All right, you can see the games are being played now. A lot of attacks. We're about halfway through the race. Definitely got the speed up now. They're above 30 miles per hour. Much better turn as well. See, it's so much smoother like that also. When you're able to carry a little speed, especially through some semi-technical turns, you don't have to spike as much. You don't have to hit 600 watts coming out of the turn. You can roll through the turn, and you might only roll up to about, high 300s or 400 watts and keep that same speed, or actually a higher speed. But when you take it like in proper line, have to slow down so much, and then you have to like just really sprint out of each turn. Kind of like this one, but this one's more so because of the design of the decreasing radius, that you almost always have to like have a pretty decent acceleration out of that turn. Yeah, the higher you can keep your speed, the more efficient you can be, and kind of the less energy you have to use. In crit races, basically every time you touch your brakes costs you energy. Like anytime you're touching brakes, it costs you some energy, and you're going to have to accelerate, use energy to get that speed back. So it's a lot easier, even on group rides, it's a lot easier to kind of angle yourself and, take a slight amount of wind to kind of slow you down, more so than just hitting brakes. So sometimes to control speed, you just kind of drift out of the draft a little bit when possible. Obviously, if you open a door, someone in racing may take it. So it's a little bit different, but you understand the concept. It's just you want to hit your brakes as little as possible. And again, it's time, place, circumstances. Sometimes it's necessary to be on the brakes. Sometimes it's necessary to scrub speed. I always have to throw a disclaimer out there because everyone gets so sensitive about something you say and think it has to apply 100% of the time to everything, and it doesn't. Situations vary. And I know that even when I speak about it, so please don't take it personal if I point out something in the race. It's just I use it to make an example that one time. It doesn't mean that you do it every time or that you can't corner or anything like that. It's just a time to point it out and illustrate something. You can see this rider here in track rider. I don't know what team that is, but yeah, had a little cross wheel situation there from the inside, which not that big of a deal, like I said, because that second turn is just a kink, and you see a lot of movement here. You really shouldn't have a lot of abrupt lateral movements. Should not have a lot of, you shouldn't have really any abrupt lateral movements. Anytime you're moving laterally, you want to move gradually. Yeah, so I think there's $100 preem on the line right here, if I remember correctly or heard correctly. Yeah, so it's definitely a little spicy through here. Like I said, once the games start playing and the money starts coming out, $100 here, $50 there, people stop messing around and they kind of get on it a little bit. And I think everybody wants this little $100 right here. Camilla was on the front for that first half of the lap, so I think she's a little bit tired now. But, obviously $100, people still want to, get that cash and recoup some of their expenses. Again, very tight in there, and you can see how much slower the speed is. Instead of coming out at 28, everybody came out at 25 this time, and then you got a spike to almost 600 watts to get your speed back up. So I think the Blazers may have taken that $100 there. I can't remember who's in it from Butcher Box. I know I should be doing this. I've been doing this enough that I know I should have like the results sheet in front of me so I can get everyone's names right and the place they came in. So Butcher Box comes in really tight right there, and you can see they hit the barrier because that barrier is not angled. I wouldn't say it's not angled correctly. Obviously, this is 10 laps, 15 laps in, so it's been there every time. But yeah, it can happen. You come in a little too tight. It kind of creates a little blind spot, and she wasn't aware that that barrier kind of stuck out at the end instead of continuing to round. It starts to round off, and then it sticks out. So just got the angle a little wrong and hit the barrier there, but everyone stayed up. And that's just kind of the, one of the cons of holding a really tight line. It creates blind spots. So same thing here. If you see the barriers there, the tighter you are to that barrier, you can't see your exit. The wider you are, the sooner you see your exit, the more confidence you'll have when you initiate turn in. It's basically the same as if you picture every turn, picture it as a building, picture the corner as a building just going straight up to the sky. The closer you are to that building, the less you can see. As you move out to the left side, or I'm sorry, left, I'm just saying left because we're going right hand turns here. But as you move out to the left side, you get to see around that building a little bit sooner, and that increases your confidence. Our vision is the portal to fear. Whatever you see is what causes the fear. And when you can't see, it causes more fear. So when you can't see around this barrier here, it causes a little fear. Once you can see the road open up, you start to relax and you can accelerate with a little bit more confidence. And that's the same on every single turn. Once you see your exit, your body becomes more confident. You become a little bit more relaxed. But when you can't see the exit, you just has a little bit of anxiety in you. Yeah, so it's been hot for the last like few laps, and we're down to about, I don't know, maybe 8 laps to go. So here's a little bit of calm before the next storm. Everything slowed down just a little bit. Yeah, and shout out to Eli Watson also. Eli won the overall for his age group in the juniors. I want to say he won the 15 to 16 age group. So yeah, we're definitely calm. As you can see, they're 4 wide coming into here. Speed's down to 18 miles per hour. I think that's the slowest I've seen it so far this race. May have started off a little slower, but I wasn't paying attention back then. So now you see Felicia's on the inside. Naomi's been running the inside for the last few laps. Felicia's now moved from the outside to the inside. And again, like I said, this is a show of confidence. When you ride the outside the whole time, like I said earlier, it shows like a little bit of lack of confidence. And as you can see now, she's riding the inside right now. It shows that you're a little bit more confident, and she moved up closer to the front now. All right, so just that quickly, the speed's back up. She's shuffled back, X amount of spots as well. So I transitioned back over to Naomi's video. Same laps. I haven't skipped any. I haven't skipped any laps, and I haven't reverted back any laps either. Whenever I switch from camera to camera, it's at the exact same spot of the race. Yeah, so it's stretched out again. It's not as fast as it has been the last couple laps, but it's still kind of single file. So Naomi's definitely a little late there, but that's what I was talking about. When you're on the inside, you can control your destiny. She was late on the inside, and I heard her tell the young lady that she's on her inside. And typically when you have to speak, it means you're out of position. So really, in my opinion, you want to be on the inside, but you also want to be in a dominant position, and that's making sure that you're in front of the person that's to your outside. You can be slightly in front of them, just make sure your bars and your front tire is in front of theirs, and that kind of prevents you from getting your wheel chopped. When you're kind of parallel to them or slightly behind them, sometimes they don't see you there at the right time. So when they initiate turn in, you end up getting your wheel chopped, and you're going to be mad, blaming the person on the outside of you for chopping your wheel. But really, you put yourself in position to get chopped. So you want to be as close as possible to the rider to your outside, but you also want to be in front. If you look at like Jazz and the girl here with the black bibs in front, she has a dominant position over Jazz right here. And then Jazz is fine because she knows that the turn is right. It's not a left-hand turn. But yeah, you definitely, if you're on the inside, you want to be slightly in front of the rider to your outside going into any turn. You don't want to move there late. You want to be there on the straightaway before you guys start initiating the turn in. And then everything's safe. Everything's fine from that point. But if you're kind of half wheeling or, you know, the rider that's to your outside, you're going to be asking for trouble. So yeah, we're down now to the last few laps. I'm gonna guess 6 laps maybe to go. And again, this is another little quiet before the storm. Everybody's just trying to, you know, rest their legs for this last push, get their heart rates down a little bit. And of course, there goes a little bit of an acceleration. Gets a little tight in there. So as you guys can see, you know, it's all about positioning in these clips. Pretty much that's really what crit racing is. It's all about positioning. And I would guess all racing. It's just sometimes road races, and when the road goes up a little bit more, it's still about positioning, but sometimes just your fitness and your fitness can take over there a little bit more. Anytime it goes up, everybody's, you know, has to push their own watts to a degree. And when you're in like any type of crit race, you know, the draft effect is just magnified so much that, you know, fitness is a little bit less of a factor. So yeah, definitely by now everybody should know the course. Everybody should be comfortable with, you know, all of these turns. And like I said, we're coming into around, I'm guessing there's 3 or 4 laps to go now. Couldn't see the lap counter there. So that's Camilla right there in front. Camilla had a really good race, really strong finish. I want to say she's in the top 5. I can't remember what place she got, but I'm pretty sure she finished top 5. So yeah, Naomi's up here now around 6th, 7th wheel. And as soon as I say that, she can be shuffled back to 10th just like that. Maybe even more. Saw the competitive edge rider on a really tight line in there. You know, and like I say, I talk about this so much, but honestly, it's what people fear. People say racing's dangerous. People fear the crashes. And the lack of understanding of these cornering concepts is what creates those dangerous moments. It what creates those fears. It what creates the crashes. So that's why, you know, I dwell on it so much. And yeah, I think I have become the cornering Nazi. That's the nickname. Critwit gave me that nickname, and I think, yeah, it's true. I almost can't help myself. I watch so many videos and record so many videos. It's just a repetitive theme. So again, they got it stretched out here. Naomi's sitting behind Tyler Mize right here, and they got the speed up. Anytime it's single file, obviously it's fairly fast, or if not, people would be a little bit more bunched up. You see Naomi kind of shied away from that barrier now. I think it's just because, like I said, it's at a weird angle, and it's not exactly round. It starts to round and then it kind of shoots out. So people are a little bit uncertain about it. But the speed is definitely high. Like I said, 28 miles per hour going into the chicane. There's a lot of coasting through the chicane, which really you can pedal. And I don't mean you have to pedal, through the turn the entire way, but you definitely can get a couple pedal strokes in between turns there. And on the left-hand turn, you never have to stop pedaling. It's never sharp enough to pedal strike or anything. It's like I said, it's virtually a kink. So I understand suspending your pedal going into the right-hand turn, but you really can just pedal the entire time through the left-hand kink and all the way down that back straight, if you choose to. But when everybody's not pedaling, I'm pretty sure it's because they think they can't or whatever. It'd be different if it was just a choice. So yeah, now we're down to the last few laps. I think we're down to the last 3 laps here. Maybe the last 2 laps even. And again, this is a false flat here. So again, if they're, 25 plus miles per hour, they're going pretty hard here. It's a pretty good effort. So yeah, we're not going to be able to see it, but I hate to spoil it. I think the young lady right there to the right from Blazers, I think she ends up winning the race. There's Naomi to the right there on camera. Yeah, so you see one of the Blazers making a move there. They're gonna basically do a lead out coming into the last lap. So you see a couple of Blazers moving up on the right side there. That's really tight and congested over there on that inside. So yeah, here we're going into the last lap, I believe. Yeah, definitely going into the last lap. I switched back to Naomi's camera here. You see how tight it is. It's competitive now. It gets really congested through here. I have a little bit of a near miss there. Nothing major. Colleen just had to back off. And that's what I talk about position. The butcher box rider had her bars and stuff in front of Colleen. So Colleen knew she was compromised. She backed off, and then she used a little acceleration to go around there to get back into a better position. And this is what's really hard for all of us to learn and to all of us to pull off, as you see Colleen did. It's really wanting to save your energy for a sprint, but if you're out of position, there's no reason to save your energy. You have to use that energy to get back into position like Colleen just did there. So again, the speed's pretty high. You got Blazers on the front doing a lead out. And it worked. It was effective. You got to stretch it out here. You got to get into this turn first, basically, and you definitely got to get out of the last corner first. So there, as you see, Blazers out of the last corner first, and it's almost impossible to out-sprint someone in this last stretch, if they can sprint at all. So Naomi's definitely not a sprinter. 2 or 3 people come by her. Okay, it looks like 1 person came by her. So here's how Felicia ended. And remember I said the outside will catch up to you. So Felicia's on the outside. There's a little trouble on the inside there. Gets pushed wide. And she thought she was going to run into the back of those riders in front. And that's just because the lady from the Blazers, finished her lead out. So she was pulling off to the side. And the other riders didn't realize that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry for being the cornering Nazi, but it's kind of who I am now. So anyway, we'll get a couple more videos out to you next week. Thank you.